All right. Hello, everyone. This is Jasmine from a Notch Higher YouTube Living channel, and I am back with another interview. I have a great guest on today. It is Rockie Lee. Hi, Rocky.
Hello, Jasmine. How you doing?
I am well. Thank you so much for being here. Rocky and I, we were introduced by a mutual friend. Rocky has the beautiful privilege of knowing a friend that I just recently met, Kate, and she introduced us. And Rocky, you agreed to come on. So I'm grateful that we had a conversation and I just knew you were a perfect fit for a notch higher living. So thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm excited to get in the conversation with you here.
I am excited as well. So let me give everyone the deets of why you're here because again, the YouTube channel, the purpose is to create and cultivate an environment and a space where healthy relationship skills can be learned, developed, practiced so that they can ultimately thrive. So I want you all to catch why we have Rocky Lee today. So Rocky Lee, he's a clarity coach and relationship specialist. He's a certified relationship and strategic intervention coach. He works with singles, couples, and divorced by healing hearts and igniting passion for life. Let me tell you, you know why he's here, don't you? Through Clarity Coach, Rocky's focus is relationship development. And then that's whether it's in relationships for yourself for personal growth, relationships with loved ones, relationships at work, or leadership issues. And then Clarity Coach specializes in marriage, couples and family therapy and counseling. And then two, Rocky is a husband, father, and he's a lover of life. So Rocky, you take the wheel. Let us know what this is all about, how you came into this practice of being a relationship specialist, coach, intervention, like all of this.
Such a great question, and it's a loaded one.
Yes.
Um, Only from my perspective, why it's loaded is because actually I was thinking about this just recently because somebody had asked me the same question,
Okay.
and I guess the short answer is I got into this because so many years ago
Okay.
I was really called into youth ministry.
Hmm.
And really, my I have a huge passion for the next generation.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things that I learned very early on in my youth ministry days is that a youth pastor is kind of like a magician. So so parents
This is true.
typically come and they drop off their kids at a set time every week and say, "Okay, fix them."
Yes. Yes. I've been in that. Yes.
You
Been
right?
in that. Yes. Environment.
So so the reality is that we can't fix that stuff. I can't fix that stuff. This is like
No.
to bring in a child that's 12, 13 years already in bad habits, and then I have to try
Mm.
and fix them. And then as I fix them, they're going back into the family environment that's already pre-programmed in
Right.
already the unhealthy way.
Right.
So as I started to navigate around this massive problem
Okay.
of how do we help kids on an individual basis, but at the same time they're going back into the environment that has created their belief system or problems.
Hmm.
How do we begin to mitigate that? Uh, what I found is that really the only way around this is to actually train a new generation of parents
Oh, wow.
how to raise their kids.
Okay.
So as I started to brainstorm this process, I realized that really youth groups should actually start in prenatal. That really is the first stage of youth group is I'm taking
Prenatal.
young couples who
Okay.
are pregnant, who are wanting to raise their kids in an awesome way, and I'm teaching them at that stage how to pray for them, how to support them, how to speak into their lives, to clear out the junk that's already in their heart, to navigate through expectations, to know how to communicate needs, to
Mm.
begin to manage their emotions. All of this actually should have been done as what I would call the first youth group stage, which is actually in prenatal class. So, in order to do that, I realized that I actually have to help heal marriages.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's the journey.
I'm so grateful that you said that because I was just like, well, who had that? So who has hope? Okay, so you just gave us hope. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Woo.
So that's really where the whole process started. Why I got into this was I
Wow.
realized that in order for me to help the next generation, I actually have to start by helping parents.
Hmm. Okay.
And so there's two stages here. I'm helping already existing couples, whether they have kids or not,
Okay.
how to begin to have a healthy relationship. But then I'm also helping singles who want to have a relationship,
Hmm.
how to pick the right partner so that they could have a healthy relationship. And we'll expand on that a little bit later.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's really the twofold process. So that's actually how I got into this in a nutshell, is that my desire was really for the next generation. But it started with the recognition that I actually had to help mothers and fathers first, help
Mm.
couples first, and then
Okay.
help singles. And that's how I can help the next generation.
Now, I definitely see why you say that's a loaded question because literally my brain is spinning of like, that's a lot of work, but I can see how you led to it and then how it gave you that foundation.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into this because my first question, it comes from your website. So your website, I have to get my notes.
Yeah,
Your website says "Real Hope for Real Relationships."
that's right.
So can you share how, like you started leading into it, how or why your approach to relationship development, how it's different or unique from other relationship development experts? One, you
Yeah.
just said it, like bringing it back from not just the current relationship, but can you give us some insight into that too?
Yeah. The fundamental process and why I got into the history of how I got into this
Hmm.
is that we want to be able to have healthy relationships, but not just existing relationships right now. We want to be able to develop a set of tools and skills
Sure.
and practices, if I could put it this way, where we could pass that on as a living legacy to the next generation. And so I think that it's wonderful that we have counselors and therapists that really help mend marriages right now. But
Hmm.
that's right now. My scope of it has to be more than just right now. There has to be an existing reason why we would even want to have a healthy relationship
That's
more than
true.
just
That's
right
true.
now. And
Yes.
that really always comes down to the idea that we're here to propagate, we're here to have children, to pass on this legacy to the next generation, to the next generation. Well, when I look at some of the cultural groups, and I'll just pull out one for example, if I look at the Jewish community, I
Hmm.
love the fact that there's a bar mitzvah and a bat mitzvah. I
Yes.
love that idea. I
Yes.
love the fact that the sole purpose of that was really to take a child at 13 and really bless them, really
Hmm.
speak into their hearts, call out the great things deep inside of them. Now,
Yes.
this is a cultural thing that's passed on for generations to generations. And I just feel like in general, we don't have a lot of these things that we pass on anymore.
Very
Depending
true.
on the family that you're in, you might have like a heirloom that you might be passing on. But I don't know how many families would you know that would have a particular way of living life that is super healthy,
Right.
and really can um, elevate the way that you
Mm.
show up in this world. How many of us know of a family that actually keeps passing that kind of stuff on and on and on and on,
We need to pause. Let's
right?
hear anybody in the comments, anybody in the that'll be crickets. So
Yeah,
yes, we typically know the exact opposite. Things are passed on, but it's not healthy or in the most
exactly,
healthiest. Okay. Wow.
exactly.
That's a powerful
So
thought. Hmm.
yeah, so from my perspective, I just felt like what we did in general for, like, say, so I come from a church background
Okay.
and previous ministry, so we would do premarital counseling.
Hmm.
And how we used to do that in the church, it was a very older way of doing premarital counseling, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
And primarily it's just because the information base was already set on a generation that already decided marriage was super important, and
Sure.
then family, and then career.
Okay.
Our generation has completely reversed that process. So our younger generation is already choosing career first.
That's
They're
true.
choosing family second,
Hmm.
even before marriage.
That's true.
So the priorities have changed,
Have
and
shifted.
because of that,
Okay.
exactly.
Hmm.
So because of that, what we used to do in premarital doesn't really match our
So the
culture.
model is, yes, it's an old model, like you said, but you're bringing in a new generation. Okay, that makes
Exactly.
sense.
So now some of the dynamics, just so I can qualify this,
Okay.
show as evidence of the cultural shift. So in our parents' time and age, when my dad went to work, there were no computers. So actually, there was no way to bring your work home.
Very true.
Does that make sense? It was like it's like back then, computers only companies had computers if they
Right.
even had that.
Right. Right.
Right. So
Right.
you really, and we didn't have smartphones, we didn't even have cell phones.
My father worked at a plant, so he didn't
E-
bring the plant home. Yes, I see what you're
exactly.
saying.
So
Hmm.
we actually had a really healthy work home environment lifestyle.
Understood. Right. It's a
But
differentiation. Hmm.
exactly. Now, well, we don't have that. So we all carry our work within our cell phone.
That's so
So there's
true.
no delineation to that. There's no separation to that process.
Right.
So we're all coming home with our work.
Right.
Make
Right.
sense?
Right.
So with that, what we're missing then are really practical tools on how can we actually create a healthy marriage, a healthy loving relationship in amongst this new culture that we're living in, which is that work travels with us
Hmm.
and all sorts of problems now therefore travel with us as well.
True.
There's not a separation to that.
And you
So it
said that
actually
about,
needs more than just counseling. It actually needs actual tools that we can live and practice with every day.
no, that's so true. And you said that about a marriage, but like you said, even with singles, then that's another layer where if your work is coming with you and there is no line of demarcation, it's, just a whole conglomerate of overlap or overlay. So
That's
where do
right.
you find that? Yes, that balance or that harmony. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Like
wow.
when you bring up singles, like here's one of the major things that's kind of, I would say, the roadblock or obstacle for singles. The
Hmm.
main issue there is that if singles are career driven, at what point will they open up for a partner? If your career is the
So true.
predominant relationship that you're in,
Right.
then what room will you actually have for a human relationship to come into place for that?
That's so true.
That's one of the main battles that we have going on.
Wow. And it's so true because the tools and the skills that you need to develop a relationship for work is not necessarily the tools and skills that you need for a romantic or a marriage. So,
That's
like, there's
exactly
some
right.
transferable, but no, it's not.
Yeah, like, and we might expound on this a little bit later because I know you have some questions that might
Hmm.
lead into this. But I think you bring up a really great point. Is that how we do work is completely different than how we do actual human relationships.
So true.
So one of the main questions I get quite often is how come there are no communication books written just specifically for relationships?
Mm.
And one of the key reasons is because we keep believing that communication within a business structure is transferable to a relationship structure. And it's not. The goals are completely different.
That is an amazing point that you bring up. Yes. So we got to put a pin in that. Maybe that's one of the books that you'll need to write and put out
Yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah. And
But
I will qualify that as we move on because I know you have some questions that might bring that
yes,
up.
yes, yes. Okay, so you've answered some of this, but I will ask. It's going to be two parts. I'm going to do it. So, from your perspective, why do so many people experience pain in their relationships? And again,
Mm,
you've expounded on that a little bit, but for marriage, dating, family, friendships, you talked
mm.
about the work aspect. Is there anything else that you could say why people are experiencing so much pain in relationships? And I say that specifically because I think sometimes we
Yeah,
want to um, put an ideal out there, like
mm,
social media, like everything is filtered, everything, people are smiling, but people are experiencing pain. I don't want to sound morbid. What
yeah,
I do want to bring forward is like once we focus on what our pain is, that's how we can focus on healing. So
yeah.
that's how we can focus on the healthiness of it. So why do you think people are experiencing so much pain in their relationships? You've already mentioned a few.
Yeah, that's it's a wonderful question to dialogue on. For me, uh the main source of pain for all of us is actually our pride. And whether that would be for couples or for singles, it's actually pride. And within pride is a subsection of what I would call bitterness and resentment. And so this I would say, so let's look at pride first. So
Okay.
one of the reasons why pride for me is the main source of our pain is because pride's the very thing that isolates us.
Mm.
And so every time we come to a place where we want to grow, if we're unwilling to actually learn a new way of doing things, what we're essentially saying is, I'm fine, I'll do it my way, thank you very much. But yet, how we've been doing it hasn't worked. So this is a whole host of couples that come in for marital help.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear these stories all the time where they want help, but they're unwilling to surrender their pride. So
Mm.
when they feel like the counselor or therapist or relationship coach isn't supporting their side or isn't biased to their point of view, they want to stop the process because it's not aligned with the very thing that they're fighting for deep
Right.
inside. But
Right.
the reality is that what they're fighting for is actually the pain. They're just unwilling to let go of it. So that's where pride comes in. Pride comes and insulates us in the things that we want to protect ourselves from. That's essentially what pride does. And so when we keep operating in pride, all we're doing is really insulating us to what's comfortable, which is pain, instead of venturing out to what's uncomfortable, which is where healing actually is accessed, right? Now, that's the first part. Now, pride opens the door to actual resentment and bitterness. And so, resentment and bitterness is really the spillover of everything that we have judged somebody for.
Wow.
And so, it in reality, it starts in our relationship with our mothers and fathers. So, the age old adage that we are similar to our parents, well, that's very true.
It's very
And
true.
so the reason why it's true is because I would say from year 1 to year 13, we don't have a life. Our life is our mother and father,
That's
or
true.
in some cases, our mother, and some cases, our father, right? And
Hmm.
in some cases, it's another guardianship.
Right.
But the reality is, whoever has primary care or guardianship
Here.
over us,
Yes.
those are the people that we actually are going to spend the most time with from 1 years of age to 13. Now, during that time, can you imagine if we're spending 13 years, 365 days out of the year with that primary guardianship, we're going to have some things to say.
That's a lot of yes, yes.
Right? And so there's
That's a
going to
lot
be
of
a lot of
foundation built.
blame. There's going to be a lot of hatred, a lot of resentment, a lot of like anger and
Yes.
upsetness and disappointment.
Right.
All of that boils down to judgments. Judgments are essentially our labels that we put on somebody that's
Hmm.
negative and they don't know about it. And we keep believing those labels so that every time we see that person, all we're thinking about is the label. And we're like, aha, I know
Right.
exactly who you are.
Right.
So these two sources, pride keeps us protected and insulated from our pain and hurt, but resentment and bitterness keeps that pain alive. So I always say this to my clients that pain and hurt is a part of life. We
Yes.
can't control it. It's unpredictable and we can never prepare for it enough because we just don't know when it's going to happen. So
Right.
getting hurt, having pain in life, that's normal. That's something that's just going to happen. Suffering is a choice.
That is a choice. It's optional.
That's where resentment and bitterness comes in. Because when
Ah,
I am in continuous and consistent pain, that's no longer just pain and hurt. That's actual choice of choosing to suffer. So those are the two greatest things that face all of us, whether we're single, we're a couple, we're married, or we have family. Those are the two greatest hurdles that all of us need to overcome.
Rocky, you have put such perspective around this pride, bitterness, and resentment.
Mhm.
And even as you're saying this, the next question that I wanted to bring to the surface was why did you think, or why would you think for kingdom based people or people from the Christian faith,
Yeah.
why they experience so much pain? I would say, from listening to what you just said, it's the same thing, but we're supposed to be the light. We're supposed to
Yeah.
have the answer. We're supposed to have a response. So I'm gonna change and shift my question a little
Yeah.
bit to ask you, do you think from your perspective, from your practice, that people who are in the faith, who love Jesus, who are, Christ followers, they come into the church. However, they never either have paid attention to or have become aware of their family dynamics. So there's a book that I have even shared. It's changed my life. It's called Emotional Healthy Spirituality. And one of the premises is that we can't be spiritually mature and while remaining emotional immature.
Yeah.
So I guess the question would be, is that in your practice, do you have to help people navigate? This is one thing the author says: Christ may be in our hearts, but grandpa's in our bones.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I've experienced, I don't know, you can share on this. Why is it such a hard task for Christians, Christ followers, to get past that pain of pride, resentment, and bitterness?
Yeah. The simple answer is this, Jasmine. It's the idea that we've lost the essence of hearing God's voice. We've lost the
Mhm.
essence of what true intimacy is. And
Okay.
so, as Christian followers, we can fall easily into spiritual disciplines, reading the Bible, going to church, going to Bible studies, praying, worshiping. All of these can be structured and implemented on a daily life, kind of like a workout. The,
Right.
the problem is that none of those things helps us to see the blind spots that we're struggling with.
Wow.
So the only thing that will actually help us see a blind spot is when we're actually humble enough to come before God and really ask him, "Hey, Lord, what's really getting in the way here?"
Hmm.
And without that willingness to engage Jesus in a personal and intimate way, where I'm willing to pause, I'm willing to listen to what he would have to say to me, and I'm willing to surrender to whatever it is that he says, I don't know if we're going to be able to hear the blind spots or see the blind spots that we're struggling with.
Because
And
pride will come up and will defend and
that's right.
insulate us, keeps us safe.
That's
We
right.
don't want to hear it. Yes.
That's
And
right.
as a Bible, as a Bible verse, pride comes before destruction.
That's right.
So
That's right.
we're becoming destructive. And to your point, it's generational destruction because
Yep.
if I am allowing pride to insulate me, and if I'm passing that off to the next generation, and there's never a stopping, or there's never an adjustment or reversal or humbling, as you said, because
Yeah.
in humility, that's where we can grow. That's where
Yeah.
we can see change happening.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me share it this way, Jasmine. Like, whether we're Christian or not, the idea of pride is this, is that I'm unwilling to accept that there's another truth
Mm.
other than the one that I see.
Hmm.
That's essentially what pride's about.
Right,
So
right.
whether I'm a Christian or not, I'm struggling with the idea of whether I'm going to accept that there could be another truth that's available that could be equally as truthful as my perception of truth. It compounds when we're a Christian because
Yes,
now we're believing that we have a biblical truth, but we're
yes.
still unwilling to surrender to accepting that there could be another truth that's available.
I'm grateful that you said it that way because that is one reason why I wanted to pull it out because it's so easy for believers. I'll just use myself to say, well, um I go to the church every whatever time frame and interval that I go. I read, I study, I pray, I fast, but there's still not a breakthrough in the way that I relate to others.
Yeah.
There's still not a love that people um, consent from me. There's still a level of irritability and just hardness where no one is drawn to me, not even attempting to be saved, but I don't have family or friends, or I don't have coworkers or colleagues. I don't have people who
Mm.
work for me or who I work for who wants to be around me. And it's just like that part of it, like you said, it's not going to come by me looking at the Bible and reading it if I'm not going to allow the Bible to read me, if I have
Yeah.
pride as that filter.
Yeah.
So,
So pride in general, it, how do I say this? Pride in general prevents us from change and growth. So that doesn't mean that we stop learning. We
sure,
could learn a ton of stuff, but
sure.
never really grow. So the primary definition of growth for me is that you must not just learn, but you must be able to apply it in your life. So if
That's
you haven't
true.
applied it, you're really not growing. It's just intellectual knowledge.
That's true.
And so this is one of the primary things that really hinder us as Christians is that if I'm unwilling to accept that there's another truth in this situation, I'm really not truly listening to God's heart. I'm not seeing it from his perspective.
Wow. Wow. And I'm going to make another shift here because I write intentions of why I want to bring people here.
Yeah.
And you're hitting on the intention. I wanted to normalize the importance of relationship development.
Yeah.
And I think what you've done is you've pulled back the curtain to say, like you said, whether you believe in Christ or not, as a person who wants to develop in their relationships, that level of humility must be there. So
Yes.
I want to ask, how can people who don't have that framework, who do not have those tools, who this conversation could be like, well, that's interesting, but other than, and I don't minimize counseling or
Mhm.
therapy because I do believe in those tools as well and those
Yeah.
skills. But how can a person work with you to develop, to learn, practice, develop, and have those tools to thrive? I want to bring it to that part because I think it's very important for people to see that what you just said, I may have never heard of a practice such as this,
Mhm.
but there's something out there and someone may say like, you know what, that's something that I need. How does that look? Does that work for me? Is that something that I can obtain?
Yeah. Yeah. To work with me, it's pretty simple. I mean,
Okay.
you just send me an email or a text message that,
That's easy.
hey, I'd like to work with you. And essentially, it starts off with a consultation.
Okay.
And that consultation is really about me and whoever that person is getting to know each other
Hmm.
and really understanding the dynamics that have got you to wanting to talk with me.
Okay.
And in there, what we're going to do is we're going to explore, but we're not exploring the pain as much as we're exploring what it is that you want to create in your life.
Okay.
And that's the departure from what I do versus what counselors and therapists do. I have tremendous admiration for counselors and therapists. They are so amazing. They're so gifted
Yes.
at what they do,
Yes.
and they do an amazing job in building safety and comfort for moments in time when we're in tremendous pain, and
For
we
sure.
need that.
Yes.
I'm more, if you consider it as a analogy, I am more the physio to the healing process in the medical
Okay.
field.
Okay.
I'm not the person that resets the broken bone.
Okay.
I'm the person. I am the person that actually will guide you and teach you how to reuse your muscles in correct ways.
Ah, okay. So PT, yes.
So yeah, so people come to me because they really are actually just missing a set of tools, but they're missing, more importantly, how to see life differently.
Okay. Okay.
So they do come to, there are some people that are tremendously broken and they choose to start with me. Some people do come from counseling and therapy and then they launch in with me.
Okay.
But in general, if you want to work with me, it just starts off with a beautiful conversation where we get to know each other. And then from there, we actually start talking about what you want to create in your world.
Oh,
And
that's
that is
beautiful.
infinitely more important to me because I want to know where you want to go. And
Okay.
then we can start looking at, hey, what's stopping you from getting there?
Wow.
That's where we find the blind spots. That's where we're finding where pride is getting in the way, where ego cannot tell that there's intention versus it being imminent danger. That's where we can begin to see life differently. And so a
Mm.
lot of the problems that come in my practice are people believing that they have to change their circumstances in order to have the life that they want. And what I do is I specialize in helping people realize that it's actually the changing of your perception that
Okay.
will allow you to have the life that you want, not the changing of your circumstances.
Because no matter where we go, we are there. So
Yeah,
the circumstances can change, but if my perception never changes, I'm going to always be in a, if I have blue lenses on,
yeah,
everything is blue.
exactly.
So it's like the lenses have to change, not where I go changes.
Exactly. It's
Wow.
always about how we see.
Hmm.
Because if how I see a person makes me feel a certain way, that's a perception issue, not a circumstance issue. That doesn't mean that that person can't be a wrong person or a bad person or an
That's so
unjust
true.
person. It
Yes.
just means that irregardless of whether they are that person or not, I've already made a
How I
determination that
may
they are.
exactly. Yes. Yes. And it's powerful that you said your differentiation or how you're different from a coach, excuse me, a therapist or a counselor.
Yeah,
Because I think so many times, and again, I want to normalize this for people who are listening. I think we think, okay, I have to have one or either or
yeah.
instead of both and.
Yes,
We have so many things that we like. You don't just have one person working on your house. You have, the plumber, you have the electrician, you
that's right.
have someone who does your lawn, or however, like even
That's
our
right.
cars. Like I don't go into one store for a piece of clothing. We have so many different options. When I think I have resolved to be okay with, we are complex, beautiful beings,
Yes,
so we can be okay with expanding our toolkit, our emotional toolkit. I don't
yeah,
believe a pastor has to give you everything. That's why
that's
they
right.
have the counselor. That's why we have the therapist. That's why we have the coaches. But I
Yeah,
think just what you're saying, when we're creating that space that we want, when we're creating that life that we want, we make it look a certain way. So I want to normalize that as people are listening, that
yeah,
it's okay to take the consultation. I'm
yeah.
going to put Rocky's information in the description box, but it's like instead of just saying like, well, that's not for me, how do you know?
Hmm.
Ask the question to yourself, but also explore, give yourself that time and that diligence. I think that's the time um, that I have spent with myself to say, you know what? Well, what if? What if? It could be right, we don't even have to put something right or wrong. It could be
Hmm.
right for me or it could
Hmm.
not be, something that I need. But what if it's something that I need to explore? So I want to
Yeah.
leave that open for people to possibly connect with you because again, in this space, I use the word create and cultivate because
Hmm.
to your point, creating is like God is the creator and he created us in his image.
Yeah.
But that cultivating of the garden, that was something that it takes time and process, and it's a process. It's not
Yeah.
something that's done overnight.
Yeah.
So what would you say to the person who would be on the fence of having a conversation with you because it's like, well, I didn't have this growing up, or it doesn't it doesn't make sense to me. Like how would you not try to, obviously you're not selling anybody, what
Oh
would you
yeah.
encourage someone um, who needs to give themselves a chance?
Yeah. That's a wonderful question to ask. It's really hard because from my perspective, I'm not ever in the position of
Mhm,
trying to influence people to make decisions.
mhm.
People come to me because they already know there's a yearning in their heart that they want more in life. Now they
Okay.
might not be clear with what it is, which is why
Yes.
they would want to come to me. But if for those of you that are listening, if you're sitting on the fence, what you want to do first is ask yourself, are you really truly living the best in your life right now?
Yeah.
Are you living passionately? Are you feeling like every day you're getting up out of bed and it's not because of your job? Are you
Mm.
living life to the point that you feel like you truly are alive? Because if you answer no for any one of those, then that's more than enough reason to consider actually talking with a professional coach to really see what's holding you back from
Yes.
creating a passionate life. And it's one of these things where we all have such a short time, and I think it for me, I've been through enough death over the last 3 years
Yes.
that you are suddenly aware that we have no control over our life. All that we have been given is just one day,
That's true.
and that's today. So we can plan out our future, but we just don't know if we're actually going to have a future yet.
That's so true.
We only know when we wake up, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
the idea is just thinking that if you are living your life in such a stagnant and bland way right now, you might want to consider whether some a shift in your life or discussion or a conversation would allow you to shift so that you actually do come alive and feel
Mm,
passionate about something.
wow. We just need to take a minute to pause. I think that is sometimes what we don't do. And I want people to hear what Rocky said because, again, there are so many times that we can become stuck
Yeah.
or stagnant because we don't give ourselves the room to breathe in where we are and we just keep moving. So
Yeah.
if you are on the fence, and I appreciate the way that you worded it and messaged it, Rocky, did you hear how he said a coach? He just didn't say for himself because as therapists, there are different therapists, but
Mhm.
if there are people out there who need to look at their life in a different way, he said to consider having a conversation. So the reason why I want to bring it to that pause is because sometimes we need to stop long enough to feel the pain so that we can say, okay, do I want to do something with this? Yes. What am I going to do with it? So you're worth the pause. You're worth stopping. You're worth the time. You're worth the conversation.
That's
You're
right.
worth the you're worth creating that space. So,
Yeah.
Rocky, this has been a perfect, perfect the way that you tie that all in the bow. Is there anything that you would want to share with anyone before we end this interview? I think this was an amazing interview, and you've given us so many different things to think about.
Mhm.
And I believe even action steps to give ourselves an opportunity to create that life that we want.
Yeah, thank you for that invite. I'll answer it by just saying this. For those of you that are listening, look, if you're married and you and your partner are in pain, you stop talking, you don't feel like there's hope. There is. And if you at all love and desire your partner or want to honor the vows that you've made to each other, keep fighting for your marriage. Keep seeking for help. For those of you that are single that are watching this, I want to let you know that there is hope for you. There is a person in this world for you. And I wouldn't say that there's one, but I would say that there are many people that are specifically designed just for you. And there's hope in you finding them. There is not a rarity, you know, or it's not like there's a shortage of women or a shortage of good men out there.
Yes.
They are there, but you might need some help to clarify what it is that you need to have a healthy relationship versus being stuck on the idea of what you think you want in a person.
Mm,
So I encourage you to be full of hope as well, that there is a person out there, a partner that you can discover, and a relationship that you can create.
wow. That's beautiful. That was beautiful. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. One, thank you, Kate, for introducing me to Rocky. Thank you,
Yes.
Rocky, for being willing to come and interview with me today. It's almost like I wanna I wanna create this segment, like the Rocky Lee segment. Like we'll have to see what that looks like. Like, okay, Rocky Lee segment is coming on. But I appreciate you taking the time and speaking to us about the importance of relationship development. And again, if you are interested in specifically connecting with Rocky, I'm going to leave his information where you can contact him for a consultation. It's a complimentary consultation. Have the conversation, see what is out there for you. And again, a much higher living. And I'm grateful that we can create this space and cultivate a space where relationship skills can be learned, developed, practiced, and so that they can ultimately thrive. I had to slow that down because when we have thriving relationships, we have a life that we we can't imagine. So you're worth it. Thank you so much. And until next time, I'll see you later. Thanks. Thanks again, Rocky.
Thank you.